Ever wonder what happens after the ribbon is cut and the keys are handed over? You might think, okay, project done.
Right, but it's not quite that simple, is it? The architect's job and the whole project really isn't quite finished then.
Exactly. So today we're diving deep into these crucial and honestly often overlooked phases after the main construction. Takeover procedures, commissioning, and post-occupancy evaluation.
These are the bits that make sure a building that looks great on paper actually, works for the people using it and performs the way it's supposed to.
And if you're keen to explore more about this fascinating world of building and design, seriously, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future deep dives like this one.
Yeah, definitely do.
So this whole discussion, it's based on the material you shared with us, which gives us some really valuable insights into these critical stages.
Good stuff in there.
Our mission, really, is to unpack these procedures, figure out why they matter so much, especially to you, the listener, maybe as an owner or user, and pull out the key takeaways.
So you get a clear picture of what wrapping up a project successfully actually involves and how you check it's still working later on.
Yeah. If you're involved in building projects in any way, design, construction, ownership, facilities management, whatever understanding these phases is, well, it's pretty essential for things to go smoothly.
Couldn't agree more. So where should we start?
Okay, let's kick off with takeover procedures. The material says this formally closes out the contract administration phase. Sounds official.
It is, and it's critical for client satisfaction. You can have brilliant design, flawless construction, but if the handover is messy,
It leaves a bad taste.
exactly, it can overshadow everything else.
Yeah.
So getting this transition right is key.
The specs, the project specifications, they seem to set the stage here. They outline what you, the owner, should expect, right? Things like record documents.
Yep. The as-built showing how things were actually constructed,
Yes.
very important, and demonstration and training showing your people how things work.
And those operations and maintenance manuals, the O&M docs. Got to have
Mhm.
those.
Absolutely fundamental. Without good docs and proper training, even the best systems can, fall into disrepair or just get used wrong. The specs make sure everyone's on the same page about what needs to be delivered.
And the architect is still involved during the warranty period. The material mentions reviewing defects.
Uh-huh. During that initial warranty, typically 1 year, the architect reviews any problems that crop up and tells the contractor, hey, you need to fix this under the contract.
But that's usually part of the basic deal, right? Anything beyond that first year.
That's generally an additional service, yeah.
Yeah.
You need to arrange that separately if you want ongoing checks after the main warranty expires.
Good to know. Now, this term, ready for takeover, it comes from CCZC, the Canadian Construction Documents Committee. Sounds like a really key milestone.
It is. It's a specific contractual point defined in CCDC 2/2020. It's basically a checklist that says, okay, the contractor has done enough for the owner to take possession and start using the building.
So what's on this checklist? What makes a project ready for takeover?
Well, quite a bit, actually. The consultant, usually the architect or engineer, needs to certify substantial performance. We'll come back to that one.
Okay.
You need proof you've met all the requirements for the occupancy permit. The place needs its final clean. Crucially, all the O&M documents needed for immediate operation have to be handed over.
Not just piled in a box. Like,
No, the ones you need now. Plus, up-to-date as-built drawings, all the required startup testing needs to be done for immediate occupancy. The owner needs secure access if that's required.
right.
And importantly, the demonstration and training sessions need to be scheduled. It's quite comprehensive.
It really is. Okay, you mentioned substantial performance in there. The material says this is more of a legal or regulatory thing, and it varies across Canada. Quebec's different, for example.
That's right. Substantial performance is often tied to provincial legislation, which dictates when holdback funds can be released. And yes, the rules differ. Quebec doesn't have the same statutory holdback system.
So not all provinces use substantial performance to trigger releasing the holdback money.
Correct. It's a bit of a patchwork legally. That's partly why CCDC introduced ready for takeover in their contracts to have a more consistent contractual milestone across the country, even if the legal definition of substantial performance varies.
Ah, okay. So ready for takeover is the contract's green light for the owner to move in, while substantial performance is tied to the legal stuff like liens and holdbacks, which depends on the province.
You've got it. And substantial performance is usually one of the prerequisites for achieving ready for takeover.
Gotcha. And the material mentions CCDC 2, might allow early holdback release for subcontractors.
Yes, that's another layer. It really highlights why you or your legal advisors need to be super familiar with the specific liens laws in your province. It has big financial implications.
Makes sense. So generally speaking, a project is considered substantially complete when what is ready to be used as intended?
Pretty much. Ready for its intended use, you've got the occupancy permit if one's needed, and the value of the work left to do is below a certain percentage threshold set by the provincial laws.
And then there's issuing the actual certificate of substantial performance. Sometimes there are specific forms for this.
Yes, some jurisdictions mandate specific forms. And a key step is that the contractor usually has to publish the certificate in a construction trade newspaper.
Publish it. Why?
That publication officially starts the clock ticking on the lien claim period. It's a limited window, maybe 45 or 60 days, depending on the province, for anyone like subs or suppliers who haven't been paid to register a lien against the property.
So as the owner, you need proof that's been published before you release the holdback.
Absolutely. The architect should always ask the contractor for proof of publication. It protects you.
And the warranty under CCDC2 starts when?
It typically kicks in at ready for takeover. That's the date the clock starts on that initial warranty period.
Okay. The source also mentions something called deemed total completion for smaller projects. How's that different?
It's kind of a simpler way for smaller, less complex jobs where the gap between being nearly done and totally finished is really short. Instead of the formal certificate of substantial performance, the project is just deemed complete on a certain date.
Does that affect the warranty or publication?
It can affect the warranty's start date, and it might mean the publication isn't required, but you need to make sure your contract allows for it and that a clear completion date is still set for warranty purposes.
Then we get to the final certificate for payment. The material hints this can be a bit sticky, like the contractor's motivation drops off.
Yeah, that can happen. Once most of the money's paid, getting those last few deficiencies ticked off the list can sometimes drag on. It requires persistence.
So the final certificate confirms the actual final completion date after everything's fixed.
That's the idea. It confirms the deemed date of completion once all the known deficiencies are sorted out.
And the Land Acts might allow a tiny amount to still be outstanding even at final completion for last-minute fixes.
Yes, often a very small percentage is allowed to cover the absolute final bits of work, fixing known defects, or the very last delivery of materials or services.
And then, the big moment. Releasing the rest of the holdback money after the lien period is over. The advice here is crystal clear. Owner, get legal advice first.
Non-negotiable. You must get your lawyer to confirm that no liens have been registered against the property before you release those final holdback funds. Releasing it if there's a lien. That's a huge financial risk for you.
Okay, before you move off takeover briefly, letters of assurance. Some places require these for occupancy permits.
Right. In some provinces, like BC and Alberta, architects and engineers provide these letters to the local authorities. They basically state that, based on their reviews and site visits, the construction generally conforms to the building codes and the design. It gives the authorities confidence to issue the occupancy permit.
So it's part of ensuring the building's safe and legal to occupy.
Exactly.
And those final submissions from the contractor before you move in, it's way more than just the keys, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's a whole package. You need the comprehensive O&M manuals for everything.
Everything.
Pretty much all the systems and equipment. You need the actual keys, of course. The record documents, the as-built we talked about, including shop drawings, any leftover maintenance materials or spare parts specified,
Warranties.
copies of all warranties and any bonds, and critical certifications, fire alarms, sprinklers, HVAC systems, security, boilers, the whole 9 yards.
Wow. And if that stuff is missing or wrong.
It can really mess things up. Delays training, delays proper testing, makes it hard for your team to actually run the building properly from day one.
And this might happen in 2 stages. Some docs for occupancy, the rest for final contract completion.
Often, yes. There's the essential stuff needed just to get the occupancy permit, and then the full set required to formally close out the contract.
Then the demonstrations and training. Who's usually there?
It should involve your people, the owner's reps, the maintenance crew who will actually run the place, but also the design team, the relevant subcontractors who installed the systems, maybe the commissioning agent if there is one, and sometimes even the local authorities like the fire department.
And what do they cover?
Everything from reviewing the O&M manuals to hands-on operation of equipment, adjustments, troubleshooting common problems, preventative maintenance, basic repairs. It's really about knowledge transfer.
Crucial for the owner's team
Yeah?
and the architect keeping a project summary file. Just good practice for them.
Yeah, smart move. Helps them learn for next time, refers back if questions come up years later.
Okay, last point on takeover. Occupancy itself. 3 types. Unconditional, conditional, phased.
Correct. The local authority having jurisdiction makes the final call. Unconditional is the goal, everything's good, move in.
Conditional.
Means you can occupy, but there are conditions. Usually minor outstanding items with a deadline to fix them.
And phased or partial.
That's when you can occupy one part of the building while work continues elsewhere. Common in large projects or renovations. Requires careful management.
And architects should check their local association rules on documenting conditional or phased occupancy.
Definitely. And phased occupancy almost always means more work for the architect, coordinating things, so additional fees are usually justified. The aim, though, should always be for unconditional occupancy if possible.
Okay, that's a really thorough look at takeover. Let's switch gears to commissioning. What exactly is commissioning?
Commissioning, or CX as it's often called, is basically a systematic quality assurance process. It starts way back with the owner's initial requirements and the design intent and carries right through construction and handover.
So it's not just testing things at the end.
No, it's much broader. It verifies that the contractor actually built what was designed, and it confirms that the design itself meets the client's operational needs. It catches shortcomings in both.
Making sure everything works together as intended.
Precisely. It ensures systems perform efficiently, reliably, and meet the owner's requirements. The Natural Resources Canada website on commissioning for new buildings, mentioned in the material, is a great resource on this.
And for big or complex projects, the idea of a commissioning agent comes up, an independent third party. What's the value there?
An independent agent brings objectivity. They're not the designer, they're not the builder. Their job is solely to verify that the owner's objectives are met and that the contractor's work performs as specified.
So they oversee testing and verify results.
Yes, and they can provide really valuable, unbiased input when problems arise. Getting them involved early helps communication too. They act as the owner's advocate for performance.
But this is usually an extra cost, right? Commissioning services, especially an independent agent.
Typically, yes. It's usually an additional service beyond the architect's basic scope, so there are fees involved. And the material rightly notes architects need to check conflict of interest rules if they consider offering CX services themselves. Independence is key.
Makes sense. And the data from commissioning acts as a baseline for the future.
Absolutely. It gives you a documented snapshot of how systems performed right at the start, which is invaluable for tracking performance, troubleshooting, and planning maintenance down the road.
You said it starts early, even pre-design. How does that work?
Well, it starts with clearly defining and understanding the client's expectations in the functional program. What does this building need to do? That's the foundation.
And then documents like the design intent and logic diagrams need regular review.
Throughout the whole process, the architect's role is critical in communicating that design intent clearly to the contractor and eventually to the building operator. Everyone needs to understand the why behind the design.
So the bid documents need to be really clear about commissioning requirements, so bidders know what they're signing up for.
Essential. Bidders need to see the commissioning plan, the scope, the sequence. They need the CX specifications, including sample verification forms and test procedures. Any special testing standards, like CSA standards, need to be listed. Clear standards for submitting and accepting documents, O&Ms, training plans, etc. And importantly, the consequences if they don't comply, often linked to payment through the schedule of values. It needs teeth.
Okay. The process itself is broken down into component verification and systems verification. What's the difference?
Component verification is checking the individual bits and pieces. The pumps, the fans, the chillers, the materials. Are they what was specified? Do they meet the performance criteria? Checklists are often used, maybe based on risk fundamental, critical systems, etc.
And substitutions need sign-off.
Written acceptance from the architect and the owner for any substitutions. Everything documented, submittals, test results for individual components.
Then systems verification.
That comes after the components are accepted and any problems fixed. This is about testing how those components work together as a complete system, like the whole HVAC system or the lighting controls.
And contract values are assigned to these tests.
Often, yes. So the contractor understands the financial importance of getting these systems verified correctly. Regular commissioning meetings are vital here to coordinate all the testing and witnessing.
Who should witness the tests?
Definitely the commissioning agent, if there is one, and ideally the person who will actually be operating the building long term. They learn a lot by seeing the systems put through their paces.
Are there challenges here, like needing special gear or timing issues?
Sure, you might need specialized equipment like thermal scanners or pressure testing gear. Complex controls demonstrations take time, and some tests, like full-load HVAC testing, can only happen during specific seasons, which is outside the contractor's control.
And if verification fails, delays, claims?
Potentially, yes. That's why the material suggests things like having the contractor do pre-testing before the official witness test. Getting trades to sign off on their own work using standard forms first can also catch issues earlier.
So the consultant architect or engineer only certifies acceptance after the contractor signs off?
Usually, yes. They use standard verification sheets. If something doesn't pass, it needs investigation and reporting. Sometimes post-occupancy testing might be agreed upon for really integrated systems to avoid holding up the whole project.
What if there's a dispute about whether a system passes?
Then you have to follow the dispute resolution process laid out in the contract. You can't just arbitrarily deny acceptance without following the procedure, but sometimes conditional acceptance might be needed for complex systems that need real-world conditions to be fully tested.
And any design changes made during commissioning need careful documentation.
Absolutely critical. Everything needs to be updated, including the O&M manuals.
Which brings us to operator training. This happens after conditional acceptance.
Typically, yes. But the operators need the tools first. They need the complete, accurate O&M manuals. They need a clear description of how the systems are supposed to operate. And they need the warranties and maintenance contracts.
Can't train them effectively without that baseline knowledge and documentation.
Exactly. It's like sending them into battle without a map or instructions. They need that foundation first.
Okay, that covers commissioning well. Now, briefly, let's touch on that warranty review period again. We mentioned the architect reviews defects.
Right. So usually just before that initial one-year warranty is up, the architect arranges a walkthrough.
Who comes?
The architect, engineers, the client, including their operations and maintenance folks, the original contractor, and the commissioning agent, if one was involved.
And the goal is?
To identify any remaining issues that fall under the contractor's warranty obligations, the architect then formally directs the contractor to fix those problems.
What if it's just a maintenance issue, not a defect?
Then the architect advises the client, this is something your team needs to handle as part of regular upkeep.
So a list of deficiencies is made and sent to the contractor before their obligation runs out.
Correct. And if the contractor fails to act, the architect might review the client's rights under any performance bonds or insurance.
Can the architect do periodic checks after the first year?
They can, as an additional service, to see how systems are running and if the client understands the O&M. But the client needs to be careful if they make alterations during the warranty period. It might void the contractor's responsibility for related issues.
Good point. And what about things you can only test properly in certain seasons, like heating or cooling?
Those need to be checked during their operating season. The architect arranges that inspection, possibly with engineers and the CX agent. The contractor has to demonstrate those conditionally accepted systems now meet the final design requirements.
And adjustments get documented.
Yes, any final tweaks, and the O&M manuals updated accordingly. It's about closing the loop on everything. And remember, even after the warranty, architects and contractors can potentially still be held accountable for latent defects discovered later, related to original design or workmanship.
Okay, that makes sense. Finally, let's talk about post-occupancy evaluations, or POEs. These sound like a look back after people have been using the building for a while.
Exactly. It's a review of how the building is actually performing in use and how well it's meeting the needs of the occupants. The goal is usually to learn lessons for future projects, or maybe fine-tune the current one.
And this is usually an extra service, done maybe 6 or 12 months after move-in.
Typically, yes. It's not standard, but highly valuable. It looks at two main things, functional performance and technical performance.
Functional performance. That's about how it works for people. Social stuff, space efficiency.
Right. How well does the layout work? Does it support the activities it was designed for? Does it meet users' needs regarding comfort, acoustics, lighting, interactions? The material mentions maybe bringing in specialists like occupational therapists or social scientists for deep dives here.
Or experienced architectural programmers linking back to the original plan.
Exactly. Trying to quantify how well the building delivers on the human level based on the original goals set out in the functional program.
And technical performance. That's more about the building fabric and systems.
Yeah, checking how the building envelope is holding up, the condition of finishes, how the mechanical and electrical systems are actually performing over time.
How does that help?
It feeds directly into developing better long-term maintenance plans. And critically, it provides real-world data to inform requirements for future projects, what materials worked well, which systems were problematic, etc.
So POEs are especially useful for clients who build similar buildings repeatedly, like retail chains.
Hugely beneficial for them. They can fine-tune their standard designs, improve efficiency, reduce costs, enhance ergonomics, develop better facility management strategies. It's a powerful feedback loop.
And POEs can even look at the whole project delivery process, contracts, management.
Yes, it's a chance to review everything. How smoothly did the design and construction go? Were the contract documents clear? Could project management be improved next time? It's about holistic learning.
So, wrapping this all up,
Huh.
we've dug into takeover procedures, that smooth transition, commissioning, making sure it all works as designed, and post-occupancy evaluations, learning from real-world use.
Three distinct but really vital stages after the main build is done.
It feels like overlooking any of them could really compromise the long-term success of a building, couldn't it? They protect everyone's interests and help ensure the building actually does what it's supposed to do.
Absolutely. They're all part of delivering not just a structure, but a truly functional and effective environment.
It definitely makes you think, doesn't it? Which of these phases might you, our listener, have maybe not fully appreciated before? And how could understanding them better change how you approach your next building project?
Maybe you're now thinking about digging into your local lien laws or finding those NRCan resources on commissioning.
Food for thought. Well, we hope this deep dive has given you some valuable insights into these crucial post-construction stages.
I hope it was useful.
And if you found this informative and you want to explore more facets of the built environment with us, please do subscribe to hear more about this world.